Makers and audience in Moscow and far beyond, your voice in cinema has always been something unique, witty, and deeply human. We're truly honored to welcome you here, even if virtually.
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to it. I've been to Moscow. I've been to St. Petersburg. I'm someone who's always enjoyed Russian cinema. I think I had the pleasure of meeting Sergei Bondarchuk some years ago in New York. I saw the Russian War and Peace, which was 7 or 8 hours long. I saw it in one day, and it was a great experience for me. And I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
So now it's in Russian. Давайте перейдем на русский и давайте перейдем к вопросам, которые у меня есть к господину Вуди Аллену. Итак, первый вопрос. Кино как зеркало времени. Как художник отражает эпоху через комедию, драму, абсурд или молчание?
I have never been someone who was a thinker. I just make the films to try and entertain people, to try and give people a nice experience for an hour and a half or 2 hours. And so I just make them without any kind of intellectual motivation behind them. I make them because I do what I think is funny. I do what I think will be entertaining. And as a matter of fact, I've been a very apolitical filmmaker. I've never made a political film. I've always made personal films. And it's just been good luck for me that they resonated in the United States and all over the world in a way that's meaningful to other people.
Спасибо за этот ответ. Перейдем к второму вопросу. От камеры к камере, переход режиссера к продюсированию. Что значит быть продюсером, когда ты сам режиссер?
Well, I, of course, have never produced a film. To me, the producer is someone strictly in the United States in the business aspect. The producer raises the money and puts the project together. I've had a different situation because I would write the film and direct the film and very often appear in the film. And so I didn't really need a producer in the sense that the term is usually used. Usually a producer in the United States finds a script or a book and gets together with a director and has lunch with a lot of movie stars and tries to bring it all together. I had it all together immediately. So for me it was very simple. I've never had to work with a producer, so to speak. The producers on my film, in a certain sense, were working for me. So I've always had very good, cordial relationships with very nice people who understood what I was trying to do and were very sympathetic to it, very helpful to me.
Спасибо. Третий вопрос. Актер внутри режиссера. Как опыт игры в кадре меняет взгляд на режиссуру?
It doesn't really change it because, you know, acting and directing is not rocket science. It's just common sense. You write a script, you know what you want to see on the screen, and then when you act in it, you direct the actors, or if you're acting yourself, you make sure that they don't do anything on the screen that they wouldn't do in real life. It's just simple common sense for them to perform in a realistic, non-histrionic way. The biggest problem one has as a director is to tell actors not to act, to just quietly be real, be who they are. And that's what I did when I acted. I just spoke as I speak in real life, and I didn't suddenly become an actor. I never took an acting lesson. I just spoke as I spoke, and I direct all the actors to just speak as they speak. In fact, in my films, I very often tell the actors if they feel comfortable, they can disregard the script as long as they understand the objective of the scene, what we're going for, and they can put it in their own words. If the scene is about a man who's going to quit his job and has to walk in and quit his job, I'd say to them, you don't have to use my words, just walk into the office as if you work there and quit your job, and whatever your employer says to you, you know, answer what you would answer in real life. Just do it as you would do it. And this is, I think, the art of acting in motion pictures is really non-acting, to just be real and use your common sense.
Ну, сразу же у меня еще один вопрос вот на эту тему. Много ли в фильмах уделяют импровизации, именно актерской импровизации? Вы отчасти ответили на этот вопрос, но хотелось бы еще услышать ответ.
Yes, I encourage them to improvise, and you would think that, when they come in and I say, you can improvise this, you can put this in your own words, you don't have to go by what I wrote. They say, oh, thank you so much, it frees me, it's great, I love this and everything. But when the time comes to film the scene, they immediately start saying the words that I wrote. And I have to remind them that they're not trapped into that. They don't have to do that. But many of them are reluctant to improvise. They say they want to improvise. They say it's a big gift to them as actors and that it frees them. But in actuality, when the time comes, they get right back into the script. Now, not all of them, but most of them go to the script. I encourage them always to improvise because I always feel it will seem more natural if they're speaking not words off a script that they've memorized, but words that are spontaneously occurring to them. And I do the best I can with that, getting that from them. And so I do think the films that I've done have been well acted. If a film doesn't work, it's not because the actors are bad. It's because, and usually it's not because the direction's bad. The direction is not that difficult. It's usually because the script doesn't work. I would say 90% of films, and certainly 100% of my films, if they fail because I've written a poor script, or I've made a mistake in the script that I didn't realize at the time. But the success or failure of a film is not so much in the acting and rarely in the directing. Many fine directors around and wonderful actors and actresses. It's usually that the writer, which is the toughest aspect of the film, the toughest factor in making a film is writing it. It's because the writing had a problem, and everybody else does a very good job. The actors are wonderful, the camera work's wonderful, the direction, the costumes, but for some reason it doesn't work, and this is because the script was doomed from the start, and nobody really understood that. Nobody could see it on the written page. Everyone thought it read beautifully, but when it was actually put on its feet and made live, we didn't realize that it had flaws in it, and that's why it failed. So I was telling you this only because it's not the acting or the direction of the camera work that usually dooms a film. It's usually the writing.
Все-таки вы можете вспомнить конкретных актеров, которые в импровизация которых на площадке вам понравилась, и эти сцены были включены в ваш фильм?
Sure, I'm one of them. I write a scene at home, and I write it, in my bedroom, and I write it, and then when I have to go and do it someplace, it's a completely different mental exercise. I think to myself, my God, what was I thinking when I wrote this in my bedroom? And I change it completely and improvise it at the time. And I've done this with Diane Keaton very much. I've done it with Tony Roberts. I've done it with Scarlett Johansson, with Judy Davis, a wonderful Australian actress, with Diane Wiest, an American actress who I've encouraged to improvise, and all the prominent people in my films over the years I've improvised with and have encouraged to improvise, and they have improvised. But most of the actors in the large cast have a tendency not to. They become timid and feel more comfortable, no matter what they profess, in going with the script.
Вуди, а скажите, вы когда-нибудь в жизни снимали кино не по своему желанию?
No, I've never filmed anyone else's screenplay. I only film them because I want them to be done properly. I mean, I didn't enter as a director. I entered as a writer, and I saw when I first started, I wrote a script, and it was made into a movie, and a very successful movie. But I was ashamed of it. I thought it was terrible, and they had done a terrible job with my script, and I didn't care how successful it was. I just didn't like the movie, and I vowed that I would never do another movie unless I could be director. So I directed them only to get the script the way I want. So I've never had any interest in directing anyone else's script. I just wouldn't be interested in that, and I've rarely been in anyone else's movie. That's not because I didn't want to, but over the years, very few people have come to me, almost none have come to me and offered me roles in their movies, despite my acting in my own movies. They have not been tempted to offer me roles in other movies. So I've done almost no other movies than my own, and certainly never directed any.
Вы отчасти уже ответили на мой вопрос. Я хотел спросить у вас, студии или продюсеры обращались ли к вам за вашими сценариями для других режиссеров? Вы уже ответили на этот вопрос. Скажите, Вуди, а у вас много сценариев лежат, как у нас говорят, в столе, те, которые не реализованы?
I don't have a lot. Excuse me. I don't have a lot. I have a couple of scripts unrealized in my drawer, and usually I don't participate in something until I know what and where it's going to be. For example, if an American company says, we will finance your film, that enables me to do certain kinds of stories. But if I'm called from Russia or from France or Spain, and they say, we will finance your film, but you have to make it in Moscow, or you have to make it in Barcelona, I then have to write a script that is correct for that city, not just any script that could be anywhere, and we stick it in Barcelona, we stick it in Paris. It has to be indigenous to that city, where it could not be done somewhere else. And so I usually wait before I write a script until I'm contacted and we make a deal and the money is in the bank and I know there's going to be a movie made. Then I sit down and write a script for Rome, and then when I'm finished, it immediately goes into production. The money's in the bank, and I usually operate on what I have called the brown paper bag symptom. I like the producer or the backers to put the money in a brown paper bag, and we put it in the bank, and then they don't bother me, and I give them a movie 6 months later, or 7 months later, or 5 months, whatever. You know, I don't let anybody read my scripts. I don't let anybody make suggestions. I don't conference with people or talk with them. I make the film by myself, and I've made 50 films, and not all of them have made money, but if you had bet on me for all 50, if you were invested in all 50, you would have made a lot of money over the years. They have, most of them have done nicely, and some of them have done very nicely. So it's not a risky investment for someone. And even if I make a disaster and nobody comes to see it, every film makes a certain amount of money, so they don't lose their whole brown paper bag of money. And I can't work any other way. I can't work with a lot of lunch meetings and conferences, and they give me the money, I make the film I want to make, and you've seen 50 films of mine, you know what I do, and you're buying me, you're not buying a script that you approve, you're buying me, and you're taking a chance that I'm going to come through for you, and I try my best.
Вот вы вспомнили про Россию и звонок из России. Где-то лет 10 тому назад ходила новость, что вы рассматриваете возможность снять картину в России. Это правда или нет? Если правда, то на какой стадии находится этот проект, и вообще не отказались ли вы от этой идеи?
That was never true. There was never any substance to that rumor. No Russian company ever spoke with me or my business people. There was no substantive talks. It just wasn't the case. I have no reason not to go to Russia. I've been to St. Petersburg, I've been to Moscow, I had a very nice time. I've been there 3 times. I was there years ago. I went to St. Petersburg, and this was when it was the Soviet Union, and it was not a nice experience. It was grim, it was difficult, nothing worked, it was very unpleasant. We were going to stay there for 5 days. We left in 1 day, and it was very unpleasant. And then it changed. It became wonderful. The next time I went to St. Petersburg, it was delightful. We went to the ballet, everything worked, it was lively, the people were cheerful, it was a great experience. And we stayed there for a few days, we played jazz there, it was great. And then we went to Moscow, we went to the museums, we had a wonderful time. So, I have only good feelings about Moscow and St. Petersburg. But there has never been any substantive talks about doing a film there. And if there had been, or if there has been, I would have to sit down and then think to myself, what would be a script that would be indigenous and feel good in Moscow or in St. Petersburg?
Спасибо за этот ответ, все понятно. Следующий вопрос мой. Кино без границ. Может ли копродукция сохранить культурную идентичность.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, co-productions are done all the time, and wonderful films are made with co-productions. As long as the co-production, and this is true even of a production that's not a co-production, even if it comes from one source, if there's no interference with the artist's work, if the people who put the money up, if the people who are in charge of the business aspects of the film don't interfere with the artist, whether it's a production that's a regular production, one source, or a co-production, there's no problem at all. People co-produce with France, with Spain, for all I know with Russia, and the films that come out, dependent on the gift of the director and the writer, are wonderful.
Скажите, Вуди, а у вас был негативный опыт общения со студией, со студийными боссами или с вашими продюсерами, когда вам диктовали те или иные условия по длине картины или по тем эпизодам, которые можно как-то могли включать в себя изменения в монтаже? Был ли у вас такой опыт?
I've been very lucky for a few reasons. I told you I made this first film that was very successful. I wasn't the director, I was the writer. And I said that I would never do another film, never write another film unless I could be the director. And so I was the director of the first film that I wrote, Take the Money and Run, a very broad comedy. And I was the solo, I was acting in it, I was the writer, I was the director, and for some reason, if you're making comedies, I know in Hollywood, there was a mystique about you. The business people thought they could tell the men making dramatic films what to do and what to change, but the people who did comedy, they felt, oh, they're funny, they leave them alone. They know what they're doing. They're comic. And so they left me alone. And I had complete control of my first film. And then it was successful. And so was my second film. Nobody told me anything at all. And then by my third film, fourth film, I had it in my contract that I had complete control legally. I had final cut, I had control over everything, the advertising, and I've never made a film after that I didn't have complete control over. So if one of my films, or many of my films are bad, I'm the only person to blame. I can't blame interference, I can't blame the actors, I can't blame the producers, the studios, nobody. Nobody interferes with me. If something goes wrong and the film is terrible, you have to blame me.
Вы, наверное, самый счастливый режиссер на планете Земля. Авторское высказывание в эпоху стриминга. Есть ли шанс у уникального взгляда, в первую очередь имеется в виду авторское кино, в мире алгоритмов в сегодняшнее время?
It stands a chance, but it's not looking wonderful because the financial advantages and the convenience advantages of streaming are enormous compared to going to the movies in the old-fashioned way. I, of course, grew up the old-fashioned way, so I love going to the movies and seeing film, seeing it in celluloid and seeing it, but you can't get by with that anymore. Many movie houses in New York, most have closed, and people like to stream. I tried once to make a film for television, a 5-part film for television, but I didn't like doing it. It didn't come out very, very interestingly from my point of view, and I didn't want to do it again. I didn't like it. I don't like streaming. I don't like that whole change You know, I liked it better when you made a film and it opened all over the country, all over the world, and people came and stood in line at the cinema, and they were there with hundreds of people next to them, not home in their living room or in their bedroom. I just can't get used to that. So I'm lucky because I'm much older now, and I had a very good time making films when they were presented to the public in a very romantic way.
Не могу не спросить про новые технологии. Вы наверняка слышали, видели, что за последний год технологии продвинулись и продвинулись невероятно глубоко в нашу культуру, в том числе в киноиндустрию. Может быть банальный вопрос, но вы верите в то, что ИИ может заменить актера, сценариста, редактора, режиссера по монтажу?
I'm very skeptical about that. I don't want to undersell it, but I'm very skeptical. I think that there's always going to be, you know, it's always dependent on being fed material that human beings give it. And it's hard to imagine that I guess if you make thousands of films with a robot, with artificial intelligence, maybe one or two or some would come out okay, but I don't think you ever will have the soul of an artist behind it. I think I just am skeptical about it, not because I'm against it in principle, but I just don't think that's ever going to be possible. You will always need a human touch to it to really get, you know, the emotional connection that you get from a great work of art. And I do think, it'll be a help, you know, writing business things. It will be a help in business, writing business letters, and maybe in schools writing curriculums. But I don't think that it will ever come up with something like Tennessee Williams can, or Eugene O'Neill, or Dostoevsky. I just don't think it's going to do that, because part of what they're doing also includes their weaknesses and their mistakes. And I don't think the machine will make any mistakes. It will be, you know, in a certain sense, lifeless.
Я, готовясь к нашей встрече, дал задание чат-боту написать одну сцену на идеально. Это получилась такая часть Берда, но пару шуток мне там понравилось. Мне это страшно испугало.
В чем вопрос?
Yes, well, but the artificial intelligence has to be fed with scripts, let's say, that I wrote originally. If I didn't write them, the artificial intelligence would not be able to write them. The artificial intelligence did not grow up for years and years and years in my family, with my father, my mother, my sister, my friends. You can feed that information in and it will process it, but the nuance and the detail of my life as I feel it and the smallness of it, it has to be fed in by the artist. And so the machine can only go as far as the artist can help it.
Вуди, у нас здесь передо мной находится фантастический зал, фантастическая аудитория и студентов. Я надеюсь, что здесь много кинематографистов. Я не могу не дать возможность задать, может быть, у нас остается там 13 минут, не задать 3, но может быть у нас получится 5 вопросов из зала. Кто? У нас есть, пожалуйста.
Okay.
Я могу повторить, если у нас есть микрофон, или я могу повторить? Тогда идите сюда, вот сюда задайте.
А поближе никого нет? Одну секунду, микрофон.
Сейчас.
Пожилого человека ждать заставили.
Спасибо.
Не дождитесь.
Я понимаю, что это знакомое и все такое, как бы, да.
Ну, передайте, пожалуйста, и там на английском как раз.
А, вы спуститесь? А, да, давайте, Ферст Ильич, подождем, сейчас спустится человек вниз и